Welcome to Business on 570 News, and let's get right to it. We are delighted to have with us Ontario Progressive Conservative leader Tim Hudak. And Mr. Hudak has been making headlines lately, talking about his Million Jobs Act, a very exciting outlook towards the future. He has a plan to create 1 million jobs in this province over an 8-year time frame. We're going to get into that and a whole lot more. We are delighted to have with us Tim Hudak, Ontario Progressive Conservative Party leader. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Great to be on Business to Business.
Great to have you with us, with Ian and Greg, and let's get right to it, Ian.
Yeah, well, we got Tim for the whole hour, and we're pleased about that. In fact, earlier today, you spoke at a joint Chamber of Commerce luncheon with 150 folks, and we're very pleased that you're the first of the three leaders to speak to our collective chamber members and to come on Business to Business for a full hour. So we're pleased about that. Just so people know, we're giving fair time to everybody. And on February 28th, your colleague Andrea Horvath will be speaking to the Chamber and coming on Business, and the Premier will be on, I think it's March 18th. So, but we're very pleased to have you here today. And I guess the first thing, we'll let you do you spoke a lot about this during the...
You're going to say do my spiel,
no,
weren't you?
I
saw it coming out of your mouth.
No, I was going to say, get more specific. You spoke at length in the speech about the proposal you put forward to create 1 million jobs. So talk a little bit about that and how it touches, because I better understood it now that it touches on a variety of different aspects of the economy and government. But how do you propose and what does your bill entail?
Yeah, you betcha. Well, I'll give you sort of the top line, Ian, on the 5 points of the Million Jobs Act. And we can get the details on the basics if you want there. First, I want to say to Ian and to Greg, I really appreciate your leadership in both the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo and the Cambridge Chambers of Commerce. I was really pleased with the crowd we had out there today. Obviously, I saw a lot of nodding heads. They agree with me that jobs are the biggest issue here. And you guys have been a great source of advice on behalf of businesses and jobs in this region. So thank you for that.
Well, I want to say thanks as well, Tim, on behalf of both Ian and I and both Chambers of Commerce, because you've been very attentive to our needs and certainly making sure that you're available at any time to come and speak to us. So we really appreciate that, and we want you to know that personally.
Well, thank you. You always give me good advice, and I think that's probably the third or fourth time I've spoken to local chambers.
Well, I always give you good advice. I'm not so certain about Ian.
Well, it's radio, so they don't know who I was looking at when I said that, I guess. And Rob Leone and Michael Harris and Ted Arnott, 3 of our MPPs were there, and Wayne Letloff and Tracy Weiler, 2 of our candidates, too. Michael's here with me in the studio today, too. So I'm watching him. If I screw up and say something wrong about Kitchener-Waterloo, he's going to watch his head and see it going off his shoulders. Look, get back to the most important issue. That's jobs in the economy. And we need a jobs plan because in December alone, we lost 39,000 well-paying jobs in our province, 300,000 manufacturing jobs in the last 10 years. So I have to tell folks in Kitchener-Waterloo and Cambridge the importance of manufacturing. It's the backbone of our middle class. So what am I going to do about it? I put a plan on the table called the Million Jobs Act to create 1 million jobs in our province, good jobs over the next 8 years. How do I do that? Number one, getting taxes down and debt down so businesses will invest again. They'll hire more people with better take-home pay. Second, getting energy costs under control so people will actually be able to pay their hydro bill, and businesses will create jobs, not eliminate them. Lower the regulatory burden, the red tape, the hassle, the runaround that makes many of your members pull out the hair and say, why do I bother trying to expand my business? Number 4, more trade, more opportunities, starting with interprovincial trade, knock down trade barriers so we can put more made in Ontario products on the shelves across this great country. That creates jobs. And 5th and finally, more in the skilled trades. I mean, we just undervalue to our own detriment skilled trades in our province. Our plan includes 200,000 well-paying skilled trade jobs by working with great colleges like you have here, an enormous asset in Conestoga College.
And I think what was kind of interesting to me, Tim, when you were going through that, was really the fact that you're going to be putting an emphasis on manufacturing. Let's get those good manufacturing jobs back into the province of Ontario. And of course, as you know, the Waterloo region, and Ian and I are touting it all the time. We have a great ability to expand our manufacturing base because we have a great, solid manufacturing base right here now.
Well, it's the history here. Often people, I come from Niagara, I'm proud of it, beautiful part of the province. But if I ask many of my neighbors, they'll associate high tech with the area. Yeah. And rightly they should. You're world leaders there too. But what actually built the area to start with was the strength of the industrial sector
Absolutely.
here.
Yep.
And I think probably Michael would agree when he's growing up in the area, a lot of your buddies that you play with, their mom or dad, they worked at the plant, they worked in industry. It's a foundation of middle class. Jobs in manufacturing pay much higher than average wages in our province. It punches above its weight. And then it has spin-offs in finances, in logistics, in research and development. So our plan, 200,000 jobs in the skilled trades, and I believe we can bring manufacturing jobs back to our province.
Now, I mean, one of the things, a lot of these questions are driven from Greg's committees or my committees, which are our grassroots business leaders. One of the things that people, in speaking specifically about manufacturing, and we've touted this before, is that a couple of years ago we went to the OCC and said, Ontario Chamber of Commerce, we should have a Ministry of Advanced Manufacturing, because the manufacturing that's going to be here is going to be advanced, high-tech, skilled jobs that are going to be required. And everyone, we've been shot down by everyone saying it's just another bureaucracy.
I think we put it down to we didn't know the secret handshake.
Well, we didn't know the secret handshake, but the reality is, our point has always been, if we asked if one of our businesses asked us to say, who is the one person in Queen's Park to go and talk to about manufacturing, you'd get 27 different answers, because it could be Ministry of Economic Development. Take your pick. Who is going to be responsible and the point person for making manufacturing that focus that you're talking about? Because you need somebody in government to be able to say it is a priority for you moving forward.
Yeah, it's a fair point. And look, when you've got 27 different people in charge, nobody is. And that's probably one of the reasons why we've lost 300,000 of these jobs. And you make a good point, Ian, too, that we're talking about advanced manufacturing jobs. We need to be realistic here. There are some who say we can never bring manufacturing back. And if you're talking about sort of the low end, jobs based on muscle and sweat,
foundry
right?
stuff. Yeah.
The things that we make low end products like, say, cheap toys for the dollar store. Mm-hmm. Well, those things have all gone overseas. They're not coming back. But if we use our minds more than our muscle, mm-hmm. we use precision machine. We're advanced manufacturing. I mean, look, we're already making the best in sort of the Canada Goose, right? In terms of clothing, we're making world leading pharmaceutical products as well. Michael Harris will talk about all the environmental companies that are world-leading environmental technology here.
Is another one.
Well, coming from my biggest industry in my riding is agriculture, food processing. Yep. Exactly. Problem is, those jobs are now going into the States. Mentioned food processing. We had Heinz Ketchup. We had Kellogg's down in London. We had Caterpillar in London. You've had your own share here. John Deere in my area. You can still buy those products. Problem I have is now they say made in USA. Mm-hmm. I want them to say made in Ontario.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Oftentimes manufacturing, is painted with that bad image of these, people punching clocks and working in greasy and dirty environments. But all you have to do is look at Toyota, the advanced manufacturing that goes on there to create, the Lexus automobile, which is, their premium automobile, and ComDev right in our community manufacturing micro-satellites that'll revolve around this earth and bring data back and bring commerce back to our communities. These are critically important jobs that we really feel. Wow. Every politician has said, oh, yeah, we got to do something about manufacturing, but there's never been that real aggressive, and that's what Ian and I were after.
Who's the point
with
person?
That point person where we can go to and say, this is what's important, here's what we need to do, and how can we help you achieve the goal of the government in bringing those jobs back.
Yeah, listen, you're right, there's a lot of politicians out there who see the problem and they wring their hands and say that's a terrible thing. But I don't see anybody out there aside from my team here, like Michael Harris, Rob Leone, and the party that put a plan on the table. And I really enjoyed the opportunity to lay that plan out today before the Chambers of Commerce, my 5-point plan on the Million Jobs Act. There's no real magic to this. It's just making the environment inviting for investment. Get taxes down, the red tape hassle. And when you talk about energy rates, oh my God, there's one of the biggest drivers right there that made us a manufacturing heartland when energy was under control. Now that we're heading towards the highest in North America, no wonder they're moving across the border.
I think some of your, as well, Tim, and as you know, for any business, overhead is critically important. And you talked about in your Million Jobs plan that about reducing corporate taxes as well. And I think some of your colleagues, or some of your opposition, actually, one of them for sure is talking about increasing corporate taxes, and the other one is frozen corporate taxes for now, and got support from the other party to do that. We think, my personal feeling, and I think a lot of people that I speak to, your business community is really the only sector of society that generates money. It's the only sector of society that actually makes it. And really to put handcuffs on that sector, especially at times like this, with corporate taxes and increasing corporate taxes and not working to reduce them, I think is really handcuffing the growth that we could have and the prosperity that we could have.
Yeah, you got it. I mean, there's one thing we can do that's most important is providing people with good, steady jobs they can count on. If they work hard, they've got talent that's going to be there next year. Because far too many right now, they're worried they're going to lose their job next week or next month because they're temporary part-time jobs. Before we leave manufacturing, I mean, if your listeners, I think, are probably people who want some detail, they can see our whole paper on advanced manufacturing. They contact Michael Harris's office or email him at Michael.
Michael.Harris
there you go.
pc.ol.ca. See, I know that one.
Michael.Harris at pc.ola.org. One of those emails that only government could come up with, right? So we lay out a detailed plan about how we can actually bring 300,000 advanced manufacturing jobs to Cambridge, Kitchener-Waterloo, and our province as a whole. To Greg's point, my focus, and that's why I put the Million Jobs Act, is those steady jobs. Because when you have a steady job, you're paying steady taxes. Then it comes in for things that we need, like the latest drug to fight cancer, the latest scanning machinery to make sure that you're being treated properly in a healthcare system. If we want to have a world-class, high-tech healthcare system for better patient care, we need a healthy, thriving private sector that's creating jobs again.
All right. We're going to come back with more. We are delighted to have with us for the full show, for the full hour, Ontario Progressive Conservative Party leader Tim Hudak. We're coming back with more with Mr. Hudak as Business to Business continues on 570 News.
You're listening to Business, powered by Save On Energy, featuring local businesses, solutions, and success stories, connecting community through business on 570 News.
Welcome back to Business on 570 News, and let's get right back to it. Ian and Greg in discussion with Ontario Conservative leader Tim Hudak. Gentlemen?
Well, you know, one of the issues we've been, and this is actually how it started to put the invitations out to all the leaders, is we started something called the Fair and Open Tendering Rant, and we've been talking about that every week since Michael, every week on the week. You can set your watch clock by it since Michael set up his or put his bill forward. But one of the issues that we keep hearing about is there's a lot of things in the Municipal Act that don't allow municipalities to modernize and to really capitalize on the innovation and the partnerships that could come from the private sector. So what we know is that we believe there should be improved financing options for municipalities for things like infrastructure projects. We know development charges is a huge drag on business. There's already education development charge. There's talk now about a healthcare development charge. And arbitration. You talked about this in your speech today. It's a huge problem when local municipalities have to pay firefighters and regional municipalities like we have here pay police officers that are paying 3.5%, 4% increases a year when no one else is getting that. But it drives increasing taxes for every municipality. So Michael's bill, which was on fair tendering, is hugely important because it does not promote value for taxpayers' dollar, and it's not fair for every business to have a fair opportunity to bid on government contracts. So I mean, there's a lot there, but those are the types of things that are driving budgets in a negative way. What's your plan? And then maybe, I know Michael's here, you can talk a little bit about what you would do specifically. You're elected. I presume that's one of your top priorities is to deal with the tendering issue.
Yeah, well, it's I said right off the top, we got the 5-point plan for the 1 million new jobs in our province. So we already talked about how we would lower taxes on job creators to among the lowest in Canada. We'd have the lowest along with Alberta and BC and New Brunswick. I just think if you tax something, you get less of it. So why not actually lower taxes on job creators so we get more jobs? Second thing is getting the energy costs under control. We talked about that a bit. The third part of the plan that said was reducing this red tape burden, the regulations that handcuff businesses and municipalities, as Ian rightly said. I'll give you two examples, and I'll give it to Mike because he's done some great work on the second. The first one's the arbitration system that you mentioned. This is where you have these arbitrators that kind of act like judges that decide how much some government workers like police or fire get. Problem is they're forcing sort of Toronto or Mississauga-based solutions on Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge, and giving increases that are just out of line with what taxpayers can afford. So our plan is to make sure that it reflects the local economic conditions. What's the ability of the taxpayer to pay these bills? Are they getting raises even the municipality, and to make sure that you have a local solution, not a big city solution imposed on these taxpayers. Because at the end of the day, that means the taxes are going up far too fast, or secondly, you get less police or fire because it's become more expensive.
Yep.
The other one is open tendering. Bottom line here is if you're bidding on a municipal project or provincial, you should get the best quality at the best price. And it's wrong that we have these outdated laws, this red tape that I want to get cast aside from a bygone era that limits who can bid on these projects to well-connected unions. So
to borrow a phrase, Mr. Hudak, you are now playing Ian and Greg's song.
I can see they're kind of dancing here in the studios to that music. So Michael Harris did an outstanding job. He had a bill that should have gone through the legislature. Unfortunately, you had two members here from other parties who voted against and defeated it, but it's kind of bill we'd bring forward in government. So
well,
Michael, talk more about it.
It's something that Michael certainly brought to the attention, and Ian and I both rallied around it. Michael Harris, MPP for Kitchener-Conestoga. Michael, it's kind of a little bit of a bonus to have you here when this is such a passionate thing for Ian and I, and you know that because you listen to our show every single Sunday. I know you're tuning in, and you hear us rant all the time. So, but more specifically drill down to our particular neighborhood. And I understand that, Tim's going to be certainly very well informed on this and pushing this through. But, for our membership, for our Cambridge and KW, taxpayers, this is going to be a profound effect.
Yeah, this is a significant issue, and as Tim mentioned, the bill was defeated, unfortunately, in the legislature in the fall, but you two have been keeping the issue alive, and I thank you for that advocacy. But not only that, but the advocacy on behalf of your members. One wouldn't be able to fathom that if you're a qualified contractor that you would actually be not even eligible or allowed to bid public infrastructure that taxpayers pay for, that qualified contractors who have lived, worked, and built these projects for years in our community will not be able to even quote these projects. And so I'll give you a quick example. You look at the wastewater treatment work that's been done in our region over the last little while, about $140 million, 26 eligible bidders, many of them local contractors who employ local people. Should these rules come into place, 2 of those 26 would be then allowed to bid. And so you're removing a huge element of qualified contractors, but more importantly, the savings to taxpayers. When you have less competition, prices go up. And that's just not right. And so these things have to be corrected. And under Tim's leadership as premier, we'll correct that.
No, just a second. I mean, one thing that we've really thought was important to get at. Now, I've asked Michael this, but we've got Tim, so we'll ask your leader. This is not about union or not union. I mean, what we've always said is because we have members who are union shops and non-union shops. We just want everyone to have a fair shot at bidding for public infrastructure project, whether that's the school board, whether that's a hospital, whether that's a municipality, but everyone that's qualified based on criteria, whether they're a union or non-union shop. That needs to be pointed out because this can easily quickly get to politics, and we're going into a provincial election, so we're going to get to politics. But on this particular issue, this is about fairness to taxpayers, and it's not a union non-union issue. Is that fair?
Yes. Look at that.
Look at that. That's a
politician with a one-word
ever.
answer. Man, never had that on the show before. Yes, let me just reinforce that. Michael can add on this as well. Look, one of the things that makes us great is Canadians, and that attracted my family here from what was then Czechoslovakia. Everybody's treated equally, no matter where you come from, and it should be the same on municipal projects. If you're qualified, I don't care if you're union, non-union, you should have the ability to bid on a project that your own tax dollars are paying for. At the end of the day, you get better quality through that kind of competition, and because it's cheaper, you can actually build more roads, build more buildings, invest in infrastructure. I think it's very straightforward.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
I was listening to Michael debate in the house. I got it all in my head now.
Well, and of course, we've been on, we just can't believe this. We've had the CAO from I believe it was Sault Ste. Marie on. This is absolutely ridiculous stuff.
It's hard to believe that it actually exists in our province. And in Hamilton, I represent part of Hamilton as well as Western Niagara, and they're stuck in this morass as well. And when they're rebuilding Ivor Wynne Stadium or their water and sewer infrastructure, they found out, 30 or 40% higher costs because they were locked in to certain contractors. Look, if you were going to put a deck on your house, you're going to fix up your kitchen, you would see who would give you the best quality, the best price.
No question.
Why can't government do the same thing?
Yeah. There's a couple of other things when we've talked about the provincial budget, and I guess this is one thing that's been a local issue, and we'll come back. We'll start with this one and then come back with some more local oriented issues. But the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Corporation had a whole proposal to modernize their facilities, et cetera, et cetera. They put out calls for proposal. And then the government, which they built the finances into their base budget, into their assuming they were going to have more revenue, but now they've totally walked away from the plan, but they're still keeping those revenue projections in their finances.
All right, Ian, you hold it right there. We're going to pick. When we come back, we'll pick that.
Okay.
Good cliffhanger there.
We
right?
will pick that up.
Tune in to the next segment.
Among other highlights from the Millions Jobs Act, Mr. Hudak wants to increase trade with other provinces, especially Alberta, Saskatchewan, and BC. I want to pursue that as well. And a plan as well to reduce regulatory red tape by 1/3 over 3 years. There's a lot to this bill, which Mr. Hudak, I believe, is going to table in February. Is that correct?
It will be debated in February. You got it.
All right, we're coming back with more with Tim Hudak. He's our special guest on Business to Business on 570 News.
Business to Business, powered by Save on Energy, a presentation of 570 News. Watch the live video webcast at 570news.com. We'll return with more Business to Business. Not just what you know, it's who you know. Connecting community through business. This is Business to Business on 570 News, powered by Save on Energy.
Welcome back to Business on 570 News, powered by Save on Energy, and also welcoming our, what do you call it, our Spotlight sponsor?
Spotlight sponsor, Gallagher's Travel.
Gallagher's Travel. All right, we are in discussion and delighted to have with us Mr. Tim Hudak, Ontario Progressive Conservative Party leader. And again, as we said off the top of the show, and as you've heard on 570 News all of this week, in fact, everywhere you turn, you're hearing about his proposal, the Million Jobs Act, to create 1 million jobs in this province over the next 8 years.
I thought it was in the regional water.
And a lot of talk, and we've talked about this at length on the program. There's an educated guesser would suggest there will be an election far earlier than the scheduled election date, with the very, I won't say likely defeat, but let's say the very possible defeat of the Liberal government over the budget, which means that Mr. Hudak's plan is gaining very special attention right now, and combined with the 2 by-elections being held in the province next month, and we're no doubt aware of all the efforts being made on the part of Ms. Wynne to try to win those, and that's Hudak country. So I'd love to get his take on that, especially when they bring in Justin Trudeau to come into Niagara Region to try and trump up support for the Grits. But let's get right back to it. Again, we're joined by Mr. Hudak. He's in conversation with Ian and Greg.
Yeah, no, we were just talking before the break about OLG, and I guess the important part is not whether there's casinos or not. It's how are we going to fill the $1 billion that the Liberal government has assumed in its revenue projections. And you've talked a lot about where we have to get the fiscal house in order. So talk a little bit about those types of holes those are big numbers, and it means real hard choices. What are the things you're going to do?
Well, look, I think that their plan was a phony one to begin with. I think the notion that they were going to open up 29 new casinos across the province was never a realistic proposal. And nor do I think that we've talked about the problems we have in the province. I've talked about my solutions. I don't think one of the solutions is to get a lot of people to gamble a little bit more. I think it's to create jobs and put people back to work in the province. So, Ian, you asked me how would I square this circle. Number one, if we actually want to get back to balanced budgets, we need more people who are working and paying taxes. And if you have a steady, full-time, well-paying job, you're paying your share of taxes to make sure we've got hospitals and highways and balancing the budget. And the second side of the equation is we also have to do our share in government to get spending under control. And part of my bill is an across-the-board wage freeze for all of us in the Ontario Public Service, including the MPPs, because when we see what happened outside of government, where people had to cut back, they lost their job, they're basically treading water at best, I think it's only fair and reasonable to say to all of us within the public service, you're not going to get a raise for at least the next 2 years. You still got a pretty good job. No more raises. And that saves you $2 billion a year right there.
Now, there's a couple of local issues that have percolated up around. One in Michael's riding, we've got the OMB is a huge problem for a lot of municipalities. There's aggregate mine or pits in Woolwich Township, and there's the municipalities are having to spend millions or hundreds of thousands of dollars on an unelected arbitration system that no one understands. So whether you're on either side of citizens or business, it's difficult to understand. So what are the things that, in terms of the OMB reform, that would be important so that we have more transparency in the system?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, our party's been very clear. We actually believe we need an Ontario Municipal Board to be a referee, to make sure the rules of the game are followed. But just like hockey, if you can blame the referee if there's some crazy new rule, the ref didn't make up the rules. It's the province of Ontario that actually makes up the rules. So one of the problems we have is we have a government that, quite frankly, is very centered around the GTA in their thinking, and they often will take Toronto solutions and impose them on municipalities in the Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge areas. I don't think that makes sense. I believe in local decision-making to reflect the local reality. And when you see policies are developed to control urban sprawl narrowly around Toronto, that doesn't really apply to other parts of the province where we actually need to see growth and more jobs created. So if you ask me if I get rid of the OMB, the answer is no. But if I would change the rules to make sure that they're fair and transparent and reflect local realities, I think that's a great idea.
What about Tim? Before even our luncheon, we had some discussion about rail in its various forms, and you're a big proponent of commuter rail between municipalities, and in the city of Kitchener we have a GO station. We've are certainly interested in enhancing that to get two-way traffic in and out of the GTA into the region of Waterloo, but also Cambridge. We're 16 kilometers from the Milton tracks where they stop. There are a tremendous amount of commuters in the city of Cambridge who probably, it doesn't make sense for them to drive back into the city of Kitchener to get on a train to go exactly the opposite way, and maybe 2 hours and 5 minutes, where out of Cambridge they could probably get to downtown Toronto in a minute or an hour and 5 or 10 minutes. So what's your thought on GO transit service outside of the GTA and into these communities around?
Yeah, there are some things that don't work in government, and quite frankly, far too many that don't work. We've talked about a few of those today, like the open tendering versus the current system of closed tendering. But one thing I think does work is GO. And when I'm here in Kitchener, Waterloo, and Cambridge, or back home in Niagara, people want to see actually GO extend, and they want to see the trains extend to their communities. And one thing that's very interesting about this area is you almost have as many people coming this way as you do going out because of the nature of the workforce. So I think that if we truly want to have a strong and growing economy, I've laid out my jobs plan. And to support that, I think we need to make investments in infrastructure. What would I prioritize? Expanding GO and our highway system. And I think we've lost the balance in the debate in Ontario. Transit's important too, but I think we've gone out of balance in terms of some of the LRT or other transit investments when, more so GO service and highways. GO service is higher in response to people. If you want to get out of the cars, they like GO better. And secondly, we need to expand our highways because no matter what investments you make in transit, it's pretty hard to get auto parts or cars from Toyota to market on a bus.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're exactly right. You touched on a little bit there where you talked about, we need to invest in our infrastructure and municipalities. I just, had a wonderful meeting actually with the new CAO of the city of Cambridge, going over both the capital and the operating budget that they're considering right now. And he had an interesting document that projected out to 2023. 2023 for the city of Cambridge and probably most Ontario municipalities where they hit the wall. The province of Ontario, probably rightfully so, has clawed back a little bit, said, you guys need to be inventive and creative as well. But we go from having a positive surplus or a positive position with respects to infrastructure investment up to, in 1 year, in 2023, where the city of Cambridge will be faced with a $4.9 million deficit in capital infrastructure. And, much of this is provincially regulated. We have to fix the sewer systems that are in our communities because that's just sanitary.
It's regulated to do so.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So, I guess in thinking about this, there must be a new model of municipal structure, and maybe that's reforming the entire Municipal Act and looking at ways in which we can create opportunity for municipalities to raise some more revenue, maybe back off on some of the fixed property tax, because property tax is the most unfair tax. We all know that. It's on the perceived ability to pay, not the ability to pay. What are some of your thoughts on that?
Well, look, I'm always open to ideas that can ensure that we get a better administration of tax dollars, that you cut out waste and decisions happen faster. Mm-hmm. Because if you want, something to be slowed down and jammed to a halt, you get every layer of government involved, and you're guaranteed nothing ever happens.
Absolutely.
So, I've got a pretty basic belief in life that if I can't run my own house, I've got no business telling my neighbor how to run theirs. And I think that's why we need to free up municipalities to make more decisions, make them more quickly, and eliminate duplication. For example, if we're considering building a new highway, like extending Highway 7 to Guelph, do we really need to have 2 levels or more of environmental assessments? It's the same environment. There's not a provincial stream and then a federal stream. Yep. So why can't we do those things simultaneously, speed up projects, maintain high standards, but save money for taxpayers? That's the direction I take. If you're asking me, though, Greg, would I give municipalities new authority to tax? No, I do not believe that higher taxes are the solution to our problem. In fact, I think our taxes are high enough as it is. It's causing problems.
All right, we're going to come back with more. Ian, next question to you when we come back with our special guest, Ontario Progressive Conservative leader Tim Hudak. This is Business to Business on 570 News.
We'll be right back with more Business to Business powered by Save on Energy. Call in with your questions at star 570 570-2545 or 1-800-570-5715. The strong Waterloo region, and when businesses support each other, they support the community. Now back to Business, powered by Save on Energy on 570 News.
Hey, joining us now from Waterloo Hydro as we continue to talk about the importance of Save on Energy is our guest, Jeff Quint. Welcome again, Jeff.
Well, thanks for coming back, Jeff. And over the last number of weeks, we talked about Small Business Week and some of the specific programs that you do at Save on Energy to help small and medium-sized enterprise. Then we talked about the business case, about why it would be important, and we talked about both the dollars and cents as well as the satisfaction of doing the right thing in terms of the energy and environment issues. But now let's talk about how we get started. How does a business get started with getting on with the suite of programs that Save on Energy offers?
Well, I mean, there's various ways to start, but I mean, if you're a business owner, I mean, the best way is to start looking around for ways. But you're not sure where to start. Well, maybe ask your employees. They probably are full of great ideas, and we find that when we walk through facilities, we stop at machines, we stop in different areas. These employees have great ideas of ways to save, and they have all kinds of ideas that you can start implementing. But then you're not sure what to do with those ideas, and that's where I'd say ask some other business owners, ask maybe some service providers you work with, but most importantly, bring us into the equation. Ask your local distribution company representatives to come in and walk through a process with you and explain where the opportunities are. We're here to do it when it's all free assistance that we can provide to you. It's a 3-way win for customers. But I need to encourage them not to be afraid to get people involved and go out there and get connected with us, because we've got a big network of people that we can bring in.
And that's why Greg and I and the Cambridge Chamber and the Greater KW Chamber are pleased to have you as our title sponsor, because this is really important for not only the community and residential homeowners, but specifically for those small and medium-sized businesses. We strive every day to have those member reward programs to save our members' money, and this is clearly one of those ones where it can make a serious dent in their bottom line or improve their bottom line. So in getting started, probably the best in order would be to go to the website, see what you have to offer, because it offers at saveonenergy.ca. Is that right?
That's correct.
And what's there? It shows you all the programs?
It shows you a suite of programs for businesses and the residences, and it kind of shows what kind of incentives are available out there for them.
Jeff, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for appearing on the show once again. Jeff Quint was our guest from Kitchener-Wilmot Hydro. Well, we're chatting with Tim Hudak, Ontario PC Party leader, about his Million Jobs Act. Many, many components to it. Among them, a desire to increase trade with other provinces, including Alberta, Saskatchewan, and British Columbia. This is exciting to a lot of manufacturers, a lot of business people. What are you getting at with the international trade? It's eye-opening in that
we have got trade barriers between provinces. Last time I checked, we were one country, right? Let me just give you an example of sort of these crazy rules. So Saskatchewan compared to Ontario, so it's flatter. They've got the Grey Cup now. We used to have it, but we can win it back. We might Ticats for the new stadium next year. But believe it or not, I would think that electricity functions the same way. They've got gravity there. But why do we force engineers to jump through a whole new paperwork every time they want to work in a different province? Does that make any sense?
Well, what's interesting is the new comprehensive trade agreement that Canada's put together, that Stephen Harper signed just back before Christmas, will include trade to Europe of that type of expertise and skill.
Yeah, and we still have these barriers within provinces. And what does that mean? It means things get done slower, that there's less competition and higher prices. I want to see more made in Ontario products on the shelves and more of our services available across Canada. 3 of the provinces, they've got it right. Alberta, BC, and Saskatchewan, they've got what's called the New West Trade Partnership. They've knocked down the barriers between the 3 provinces. I think we should join that, open up new markets, and then use that to knock down the other barriers with the other provinces.
Great. Now, there's a couple other things that we're not going to be able to get to them all today, but registered pooled pension plans is something with the insurance folks here is hugely important and may unlock, because it allows small business to be to take more ownership and individuals to use pension plans as an option for their retirement savings. So maybe you want to touch on that a little bit, but we've talked a little bit as well about skills development. You talked about Rob Leone's bill today about using trades and expanding on trades, and healthcare is the other one. I mean, so when we talk about pensions and healthcare, those are core things that people need to be concerned about. I mean, preventative care, and we both our chambers work very closely on making sure we have primary care physicians, that we support our hospitals and our specialists. So, and I know, Greg, you had an experience last week around the healthcare system, but I think maybe touch on a couple of those things before you drop off, Tim. But what was your experience?
Well, my 12-year-old daughter, woke up with a very serious stiff neck. We thought they were, you never know, it could lead to more serious complications. We left the house at 3:18. Of course, the doctor's office was closed. It was a Sunday afternoon. We had to go to the hospital. 3:18, we left the house, and we went through the triage and all of that kind of stuff. But they implemented a program, and people implemented this program where they brought in nurse practitioners to really assess the situation. And if it's not too bad or should be looked at, nurse practitioner took her. Well, I get into the car afterwards, and I turned to Lisa, my wife, and I said, gee, that seemed kind of quick. How long did that take us? She says, well, I happened to text my sister at 3:18 when we left, and it's now 4:22. And we had to drive to the hospital and get there and go through the triage process. It was a fantastic experience. I actually did a blog on it this week to really give credit to the staff and the people that implement that program, because what I said in the blog was, sometimes when you take the responsibility away from government and you give it to people, people do good things.
Yeah. Well said. And what I think we need more of, too, in government is rewarding those who give excellent work. Right? I mean, it's common in the private sector. You go way beyond goals and expectations. You're rewarded for that. And then that way you incent and reward the best performers and encourage those who are below to pull up their socks. Make a world of difference in government as well. Ian mentioned a whole range of topics. I really appreciate the time, guys, to do this, because I think we walked through a lot of detail in my plan. We talked about getting taxes down, our plan to get debt under control, energy rates under control by stopping these expensive subsidies to the big industrial wind farms that are dividing communities, the skilled trades jobs by working with colleges like Conestoga and tracking back our colleges into the high schools. Like, what if you could take a credit that counts for your high school diploma and your college diploma at the same time and open up opportunities through the trades? And we talked a lot about interprovincial trade barriers as well. So I'm really pleased with that opportunity to get to these topics. And there was health. What was the other one you want me to talk about?
Registered pooled pension plans, and as people need to plan for their future.
So everything with me starts with a good, well-paying job, and every argument, every decision that I would make as premier would be resolved on the basis of what it does to grow our economy and create those jobs. And part of that means that it's good to have a pension when you work. And we've got a major imbalance between some of the gold standard pensions in government and the fact that those who pay the bills outside of government, they don't have a pension at all. And I want to commend the Chamber for pushing these pooled registered pension plans to give small business a chance to give their employees a pension. That also means if I work for Ian and then I go work for Greg, that pension
follows
moves
you.
with me.
Yep.
So that gives good retirement for people.
You know, we could chat all day with you, Mr. Hudak. It's always a delight to have you on our radio station, and a particular delight to have you on Business to Business, because we can chat with you at length on this program. Thank you so much for your time today.
No, real pleasure. Thanks for having me on the show. And if I pass my debut, I'd be happy to come back.
Well, you know what? We're just about to put the offer, because we're always looking for great talent and business to business. And when the election's called, you will be invited to come back.
For sure. You can count on
You can come back for a whole hour.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Hudak. You've been listening to Business on 570 News.